Now when Jonathan saw that the time was favorable for him, he chose men and sent them to Rome to confirm and renew the friendship with them. He also sent letters to the same effect to the Spartans and to other places. So they went to Rome and entered the Senate chamber and said, Jonathan the high priest and the Jewish nation have sent us to renew the former friendship and alliance with them. And the Romans gave them letters to the people in every place, asking them to provide for the envoys safe conduct to the land of Judah. This is a copy of the letter which Jonathan wrote to the Spartans. Jonathan the high priest, the senate of the nation, the priests, and the rest of the Jewish people, to their brethren the Spartans, greeting. Already in time past a letter was sent to Onias, the high priest from Arias, who was king among you, stating that you are our brethren, as the appended copy shows. Onias welcomed the envoy with honor, and received the letter, which contained a clear declaration of alliance and friendship. Therefore, though we have no need of these things, since we have as encouragement the holy books, which are in our hands, we have undertaken to send to renew our brotherhood and friendship with you, so that we may not become estranged from you, for considerable time has passed since you sent your letter to us. We therefore remember you constantly on every occasion, both in our feasts and on other appropriate days, at the sacrifices which we offer and in our prayers, as it is right and proper to remember brethren. And we rejoice in your glory. But as for ourselves, many afflictions and many wars have encircled us. The kings round about us have waged war against us. We are unwilling to annoy you and our other allies and friends with these wars, for we have the help which comes from heaven for our aid. And we were delivered from our enemies, and our enemies were humbled. We therefore have chosen Numenius, the son of Antiochus, and Antiphater, the son of Jason, and have sent them to Rome to renew our former friendship and alliance with them. We have commanded them to go also to you and greet you and deliver to you this letter from us concerning the renewal of our brotherhood. And now please send us a reply to this. This is a copy of the letter which they sent to Onias. Arias, king of the Spartans, to Onias the high priest, greeting. It has been found in writing concerning the Spartans and the Jews, that they are brethren, and are of the family of Abraham. And now that we have learned this, please write us concerning your welfare. We on our part write to you that our cattle and our property belong to us, and ours belong to you. We therefore command that our envoys report to you accordingly. Now Jonathan heard that the commanders of Demetrius had returned, with a larger force than before, to wage war against him. So he marched away from Jerusalem and met them in the region of Hamath, for he gave them no opportunity to invade his own country. He sent spies to their camp, and they returned and reported to him that the enemy were being drawn up in formation to fall upon the Jews by night. So when the sun set, Jonathan commanded his men to be alert and to keep their arms at hand, so as to be ready all night for battle. And he stationed outposts around the camp. When the enemy heard that Jonathan and his men were prepared for battle, they were afraid and were terrified at heart. So they kindled fires in their camp and withdrew. But Jonathan and his men did not know it until morning, for they saw the fires burning. Then Jonathan pursued them, but he did not overtake them, for they had crossed the Eleutheres river. So Jonathan turned aside against the Arabs, who were called Zabadeans, and he crushed them and plundered them. Then he broke camp and went to Damascus, and marched through all that region. Simon also went forth and marched through the country as far as Ascalon and the neighboring strongholds. He turned aside to Joppa and took it by surprise, for he had heard that they were ready to hand over the stronghold to the men whom Demetrius had sent, and he stationed a garrison there to guard it. When Jonathan returned, he convened the elders of the people and planned with them to build strongholds in Judea, to build the walls of Jerusalem still higher, and to erect a high barrier between the citadel and the city to separate it from the city, in order to isolate it so that its garrison could neither buy nor sell. So they gathered together to build up the city. Part of the wall on the valley to the east had fallen, and he repaired the section called Chaphthenia. And Simon built Adaiah in the Shaphalia. He fortified it and installed gates with bolts. Then Trypho attempted to become king of Asia and put on the crown, and to raise his hand against Antiochus the king. He feared that Jonathan might not permit him to do so, but might make war on him. So he kept seeking to seize and kill him, and he marched forth and came to Bethshan. Jonathan went out to meet him with 40,000 picked fighting men, and he came to Bethshan. When Trypho saw that he had come with a large army, he was afraid to raise his hand against him. So he received him with honor and commended him to all his friends. And he gave him gifts and commanded his friends and his troops to obey him as they would himself. Then he said to Jonathan, "Why have you wearied all these people when we are not at war? Dismiss them now to their homes and choose for yourself a few men to stay with you, and come with me to Ptolemaeus. I will hand it over to you as well as the other strongholds and the remaining troops and all the officials, and will turn round and go home. For that is why I am here." Jonathan trusted him and did as he said. He sent away the troops, and they returned to the land of Judah. He kept with himself 3,000 men, 2,000 of whom he left in Galilee, while 1,000 accompanied him. But when Jonathan entered Ptolemaeus, the men of Ptolemaeus closed the gates and seized him, and all who had entered with him they killed with the sword. Then Trypho sent troops and cavalry into Galilee and the great plain to destroy all Jonathan's soldiers. But they realized that Jonathan had been seized and had perished along with his men, and they encouraged one another and kept marching in close formation, ready for battle. When their pursuers saw that they would fight for their lives, they turned back. So they all reached the land of Judah safely, and they mourned for Jonathan and his companions, and were in great fear. And all Israel mourned deeply. And all the nations round about them tried to destroy them, for they said, "They have no leader or helper. Now therefore let us make war on them, and blot out the memory of them from among men." From his descendants the Lord brought forth a man of mercy, who found favor in the sight of all flesh, and was beloved by God and man. Moses, whose memory is blessed. He made him equal in glory to the holy ones, and made him great in the fears of his enemies. By his words he caused signs to cease. The Lord glorified him in the presence of kings. He gave him commands for his people, and showed him part of his glory. He sanctified him through faithfulness and meekness. He chose him out of all mankind. He made him hear his voice, and led him into the thick darkness, and gave him the commandments face to face, the law of life and knowledge, to teach Jacob the covenant, and Israel his judgments. He exalted Aaron, the brother of Moses, a holy man like him, of the tribe of Levi. He made an everlasting covenant with him, and gave him the priesthood of the people. He blessed him with splendid vestments, and put a glorious robe upon him. He clothed him with superb perfection, and strengthened him with the symbols of authority, the linen breeches, the long robe, and the ephod. And he encircled him with pomegranates, with very many golden bells round about, to send forth a sound as he walked, to make their ringing heard in the temple, as a reminder to the sons of his people, with a holy garment of gold and blue and purple, the work of an embroiderer, with the oracle of judgment, Urim and Thummim, with twisted scarlet, the work of a craftsman, with precious stones engraved like signets, in a setting of gold, the work of a jeweler, for a reminder in engraved letters, according to the number of the tribes of Israel, with a gold crown upon his turban, inscribed like a signet with holiness, a distinction to be prized, the work of an expert, the delight of the eyes, richly adorned. Before his time, there was never such beautiful things. No outsider ever put them on, but only his sons and his descendants perpetually. His sacrifices shall be wholly burned twice every day continually. Moses ordained him and anointed him with holy oil. It was an everlasting covenant for him and for his descendants all the days of heaven, to minister to the Lord and serve as priest, and bless his people in his name. He chose him out of all the living to offer sacrifice to the Lord, incense and a pleasing odor as a memorial portion, to make atonement for the people. In his commandments he gave him authority in statutes and judgments, to teach Jacob the testimonies, and to enlighten Israel with his law. Outsiders conspired against him, and envied him in the wilderness. Dathan and Abiram, and their men, and the company of Korah, in wrath and anger. The Lord saw it, and was not pleased, and in the wrath of his anger they were destroyed. He wrought wonders against them, to consume them in flaming fire. He added glory to Aaron, and gave him a heritage. He allotted to him the first of the firstfruits. He prepared bread of firstfruits in abundance, for they eat the sacrifices to the Lord, which he gave to him and his descendants. But in the land of the people he has no inheritance, and he has no portion among the people, for the Lord himself is his portion and inheritance. Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, is the third in glory, for he was zealous in the fear of the Lord, and stood fast, when the people turned away, in the ready goodness of his soul, and made atonement for Israel. Therefore a covenant of peace was established with him, that he should be leader of the sanctuary of his people, that he and his descendants should have the dignity of the priesthood forever. A covenant was also established with David, the son of Jesse, of the tribe of Judah. The heritage of the king is from son to son only, so the heritage of Aaron is for his descendants. May the Lord grant you wisdom in your heart to judge his people in righteousness, so that their prosperity may not vanish, and that their glory may endure throughout their generations. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer, and he was given much incense to mingle with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar before the throne. And the smoke of the incense rose with the prayers of the saints from the hand of the angel before God. Then the angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it on the earth. And there were peals of thunder, loud noises, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Now the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets made ready to blow them. The first angel blew his trumpet, and there followed hail and fire, mixed with blood, which fell on the earth. And a third of the earth was burnt up, and a third of the trees were burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. The second angel blew his trumpet, and something like a great mountain, burning with fire, was thrown into the sea. And a third of the sea became blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, blazing like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers, and on the fountains of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the water because it was made bitter. The fourth angel blew his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of their light was darkened. A third of the day was kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. Then I looked, and I heard an eagle crying with a loud voice, as it flew in mid-heaven, "Woe, woe, woe to those who dwell on the earth, at the blasts of the other trumpets, which the 3 angels are about to blow." Jonathan, the brother of Judas Maccabeus, begins 1 Maccabees chapter 12 in a strong position. Unlike his brother before him, he has a strong army, is able to build new defenses around Jerusalem, and is not hemmed in and constantly on the run. With relative safety, he sends out envoys to make alliances with Rome and others. Surely now that he and his family are recognized as a legitimate state power, the best way to secure his and Israel's future is to make strong alliances with rising powers like Rome. This is worldly wisdom and a trap. Whenever Israel makes an alliance with a nation, when it seeks security in earthly powers rather than in the Lord, it ends up left to its own devices, which means failure. Israel trusted in Assyria and was conquered by them. Judah welcomed envoys from Babylon and became vassals to them. Jonathan and the Maccabees were liberated by the Lord and then sought security in political alliances. Inevitably, Israel will end up in the hands of Rome. In Revelation chapter 8, we see the rising smoke of incense symbolizing the prayers of the saints being presented to God. 7 trumpets of judgment follow next, the reverberation of which echoes the sevenfold blowing of trumpets that brought down Jericho, ushering in the conquest of the Promised Land. Could this series of trumpets signify that the downfall of the world in the final judgment is likened to Jericho?